you always have this one foot in, one foot out. And to settle is to make yourself available to change. And change can be very scary.
Welcome to another episode of the Canadian Dream podcast. Today I have a special guest who was born in a small town in the Philippines, came to Canada 3 decades ago, and she does amazing work with communities locally and globally. I have the pleasure to introduce you to Amie Peacock.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun. I'm looking forward to sharing and having conversation with you, Elton.
Why did you come to Canada more than 30 years ago?
I think it's the Canadian dream. My sister actually came first. My sister and I are very close. So that's how the history got started.
Did you have many siblings or just one?
I came from a very large family of nine kids, and I'm the youngest. My sister and I are very close.
So tell me a little bit about your childhood.
I was raised by a single mom, and my father passed away when I was 3. So she would have been 43 years old. And so with mainly the mouth to feed, she became the breadwinner for us. So I barely saw her. However, in that growing up, I was so grateful because the playground and my community became my universe, became my university. It's where I flourished the most because it allowed me to be creative, to be the person I am meant to be, and that is very curious. Everywhere I looked is interesting.
What playground was that? Was it in a neighborhood or in a school?
When I say playground, it's actually a metaphor.
Oh, okay, so our neighborhood or the environment.
Yeah, the environment. I get to go to forests and imagine the world where I get to expand my imagination, expand my knowledge. And so there is, of course, I call it a curse and a blessing. Curse being very poor, yet a blessing because in it, I became the better person that I am today. My mother was always my inspiration and my, I'd say, my mentor, because through her, I get to see what community looks like.
Now I understand why you're all about communities and making and avoiding that loneliness feeling. And did you ever picture yourself living outside of the Philippines until then?
We never heard of Canada until my sister came. We always heard the U.S. because of a large military base in the Philippines. And then my sister came. I imagined that I would go and probably live in the U.S. And then the moment I actually arrived, I woke up in the morning and saw this canvas of beautiful mountains, and I felt home for the very first time. It's so weird as it might sound, but for the very first time, I felt at home.
I totally understand that feeling. I had been to 30 countries when I landed in Toronto, and I had always been a foreigner. I was, you were Brazilian, Italian when I was in Germany, but in Italy, you were German or Brazilian. But in Brazil, you are not one of us. You're different. When I came to Canada, I felt so welcomed. The guys at the immigration, they were, oh, welcome, welcome. And I just felt, oh, you're one of us. Is that how you felt too?
I think that feeling of arriving and belonging, that actually became a foundation of me deciding to live and call Canada my home. It took me 5 years because as an immigrant, as a visitor of the land, you always have this one foot in, one foot out. And to settle is to make yourself available to change. And change can be very scary. And when the country is opening their doors for you, you have two options. You either decide to make this your home, and that means building your community, or you become this in isolation and remain wondering whether you want to live here or not. So for me, making this my home was probably the most crucial decision that I ever had to make.
And you mentioned before that you made a lot of mistakes and you wasted a lot of time at the beginning. What mistakes were you talking about?
Figuring out and being comfortable of who I am and what I am made to be comes later on in life. The mistakes would be probably that I didn't know what my strength, my gifts, because I'm good with people. So I thought becoming a nurse would be something really, really good.
Is that what you did?
I took a lot of courses in hopes that I would eventually become a nurse. And I figure out I love my sleep too much that I said to myself, is this really what you wanted to do? And relationships too. Some of those mistakes is not being intentional.
Okay, so you met the wrong people, you were hanging out with the wrong people.
I wouldn't say they're wrong people. I would say it's a mismatch of what I could have contributed to them because I didn't understand much. In my 20s, I only understand what I know. But now, as I get older, it's broadened my understanding of what relationships and my work that leads me to becoming a person that, started different organizations.
And you started one of these organizations about 7 years ago. Tell me a little bit about the path that you were on that led you to starting this organization.
It did not come to fruition until through the lens of my late mother experiencing loneliness and social isolation.
Was your mom here in Canada?
She came. It was my wedding in 2001, and I asked if my mother, who is not afraid to talk to people and can make friends anywhere and everywhere, how many more people like her who are in Canada that are experiencing this firsthand? The language was a barrier for her. And then she said, it's great that I get to experience Canada. And then she said, but it's not for me. If I die, I prefer to be surrounded by the people who loves me, who knows me, and cares for me. And so let her go is the most loving thing for us to do, in spite of we wanted to keep her here.
So did she go back to the Philippines?
She did. And I remember that moment where I promised my late mother that if I have an opportunity to help others, that I will help as many people. So 2017 is when we register Beyond the Conversation to become a BC society. It's a nonprofit society.
So from the moment you started Beyond the Conversation, what was your goal?
Beyond the Conversation vision is to end social isolation. And the way that we do that is facilitating conversation with everyone. So We started actually by identifying the problem among seniors. That's how we actually started, is serving the needs of seniors.
In
Because
senior homes?
no,
No?
in seniors in general, seniors that have immigrated here, seniors who were born in Canada, and they're also experiencing isolations too. And then we got invited to participate in the Truth and Reconciliation. We have a booth there. Young people, thousands of them, start coming to our booth and said, great that you're addressing social isolation in seniors. But do you know that we are also experiencing? I was shocked. I literally said, you're young, you're full of life. You have this opportunity to go partying. What is the problem? And then another teacher came to me and said, Amie, would you come to my class and speak for 20 minutes about what you do, and inviting these young people as early as 16, 17, about 50 of them in the room. Now, if this is the problem, let's figure out how to also reach out to young people. And the way that we do it is we just invite them to events. We invite them to a one-on-one or a group setting, and we do not want to create any barriers for people to participate. So we take away all the rules and we just say, come as you are, whenever you are, and wherever you come from, come. So we created in person, we meet in coffee shops, we meet in basement of churches, community centers, libraries, any places that we can host between 5 and up. And so we would constantly develop this working relationships with practically everyone.
And you must have a big team helping you. Is there a lot of volunteering?
Yes, so it is actually a volunteer-based organization. And when people ask me questions, I have all the answer, but I don't want to feed them all the answer, but rather I ask, so what do you think? And then the reason for me for doing that is I want them to think about the epidemic of social isolation and loneliness is not one person's job. That's not my responsibility alone. It's yours. It's every person in the planet.
Do you think it's a growing problem, or is it a geographic problem? Is it a local problem here in Canada? Is it a global issue?
When I started, my answer would be yes, local and geographical, but not anymore. As a matter of fact, there is Cigna, a research group. There is a report that they released in 2020. It's 3 in 5 are actually experiencing loneliness, social isolation. Let's say 5 or more of us in one room, 3 of those are experiencing.
Do you notice if a lot of people that suffer from isolation are not married? Because I'm just thinking, well, I'm so glad I am happily married and that I have a loving child that I love spending time with. Because I remember being single, even though I was always super outgoing, there were lots of moments when it hits you. Wow. And now what? Now where are the people that can fill this gap?
Yes. Loneliness is part of human experience. Now, the chronic loneliness and the chronic social isolation is what we need to address firsthand and more seriously. The person who is experiencing chronic loneliness and social isolation, drives from the feeling of loneliness, but have not seek any support or not recognizing that it is. So it leads into that chronic conditions. The person who does not have any support at all, their lifespan is actually shorter versus someone who has a connection in their community and their lifespan added 15 years.
What does not work when we are trying to help someone that feels lonely?
When you push to people what you think a solution for them, it does not work.
Okay, so on the other hand, what are the things that we should do when we see that someone might need help, that they might be feeling isolated?
Everywhere that we go out of our door, we see people. And sometimes it's very difficult to identify because they're masking it with their smile. But simply to ask, "Hi, how are you doing? Is everything okay?" When I'm walking and people are sitting very quietly and their eyes is so far away, I know that their brain is so far away, I will quietly approach the person and say, "Hi, how are you? I'm Amie, by the way, and oh, so nice." So just make a little bit of chit chat, and when people does not want to talk, they'll just say, "I'm fine," and then the follow up question is everything all right? And then they'll say yes, no, and that's when everything changes. When they say not really, then the follow up question that I ask is, "Would you like me to sit next to you?" And they say, "Yes, please." And then another follow-up is, "Would you feel ready to share? If not, I'm here. I'm just gonna sit next to you until you feel that you no longer need me to be here." The powerful part of that is I've received a phone call and said something, "Amie, do you remember that time that you stopped and asked me?" And I've forgotten about it because I have hundreds of these experiences. And I said, "Actually, barely, but please remind me again." I was that person who actually sat on the bench. And what you didn't know is that I wanted to kill myself that day.
So being present is way more powerful than we imagine.
Yes, because our body tells a story without the audible words. And I notice this a lot too, that when I am with someone, I listen. And then I give them permission to be either to talk when they're ready, or I say to them, "However you feel, I am here."
And what is giving talents?
So Giving Talent is a platform. We have a website, givingtalent.org. The essence of Giving Talent is asking people from any part of the world to give talents. So talents such as cooking, babysitting, mentoring, helping people to read, helping people to carry their groceries for someone who is injured, someone probably a dentist, and another person who couldn't afford. That's part of the talent. Or you can put it as skills. So skills could be, if you are a lawyer, you want to help your community someone who is going through difficult times that needed to understand the legality of things. That's a skill, that's a talent. A teacher who has some maybe extra books for people or children who are not in school but want to educate, that's a resource that people can give.
And are these all volunteers?
Yes. In essence, giving talent is something that anyone can give. What we are asking is, if you have time, pledge 100 hours with your talents, whatever that may be, or 10 hours, 5 hours, 1 hour. It doesn't matter.
And do you connect these volunteers, let's put it this way, with people who need these services? Or do they record online videos? How does that work? Yeah.
People can register their pledge or pledge their time or their skills or resources online. And then the idea is that we collect them, and then each year, or when there is a need in the community, we give it all away. We actually don't keep it. The idea is then we give it away to anyone, anytime, anywhere. And you don't have to be a certain member. Eventually, though, we would want a membership. We would want people to access this and part of that growing movement, because these are the time that people give, and we want to make sure that people are safe.
What gives you most satisfaction doing this work?
This conversation with individuals, conversation and mentoring someone from being hurt, from struggling, seeing their potential and investing in that and cultivating that. And relationship, as a believer of Christ, this is my purpose, this is my calling, and I get so much satisfaction if I can love people, especially those who are unlovable, people that feels they are not lovable, people that feels they are the reject of communities, and to see the spark in their eyes when I sit down with them and listen to them and say, you are worth, you have worth in the world. We need to find what that is. And when they finally see that they have something to offer in the world, that's beyond money you can never buy. It's that joy of expression from someone who wants to commit suicide, and later, in many years later, coming back to me and saying, thank you for being there for me, and just accepting me and loving me for who I am, and seeing them now cultivating that relationship with others and in growing in such a way that they themselves become the agents of change.
What's next for you?
Our goal is to put together a campaign. Let's see how we can reach out, because each person have a role to play in addressing loneliness and social isolation. Let's do this together. I'm inviting everyone, your viewers, to come, because you have so many great things to offer in the world. We don't need, connecting with community, we don't need PhD for that. We just need to be humans. Humans have this ability to connect. And if we can do that, if we can sometimes just smile, that is enough. And if we can even open the door for someone and say, please, buy someone coffee, we can do that. And sometimes just making ourselves available. And we are excited because more and more people now are coming to us and say, I want to be part of this. So we started our project right now. It's a storytelling, and again, it's a space where people can just be who they are and hear their stories and inspire others. And we're looking for individuals to be a host, to be inviting us to their cities, their communities, their neighborhood, locally, nationally, and globally.
What pieces of advice would you give to someone who is feeling more lonely than normal?
There are people in the world that actually cares about you. And sometimes it may feels like nobody cares, but actually, surprisingly, many people cares about you. And if you are open, reach out to someone, your next door, someone in the coffee shop, and don't give up on your dreams, because you have so much to offer to the world. And sometimes it just needs figuring it out. And once we journey towards that, then you will experience that, in fact, life is indeed worth living for.
Amie, thank you so much for your time and for sharing these stories with us. And thank you for listening to another episode of this podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, remember to like this video, to share it, and to subscribe to our channel. And also take a look at the video description and make sure you go visit Beyond the Conversation and Giving Talents. I will see you on the next episode. Bye for now.